will be able to explicate the learning principles through Allan's lesson. Now, I will invite Allan to share with us the lesson that his team has designed and enacted for their Primary 4 students. Hi, Allan.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us your lesson design. Now, just some questions for you so that the rest of us could better understand your design intent and also your lesson itself. So what is the profile of your students that you have designed your lesson for?
So the lesson is designed for a Primary 4 class that's about age 10. The version of the lesson is actually more catered for mid to high performing students in terms of academic readiness. For my own class, I have quite an even mix of boys and girls. I would say they mainly prefer to converse in the English language. Yeah.
And for this lesson that you have designed, what do you hope to achieve?
We had a series of compositions written in semester 1, and we had a summative assessment. And through that, after we met to discuss, we identified the main learning issue, which is under development of stories, in particular, a lack of characterization skill. So what we used was the evidence, literally the writing, and we actually arrived at that conclusion because we feel that the underdevelopment is mainly due to the characters being not fully described to their full potential.
Okay.
Yeah. So the main objective in this lesson is actually to use senses. In this case, see, hear, think, and feel. We want the students to describe details of main characters in order to make the character come alive, as you can see on your screens. And we have 2 success criteria to detect whether the child can do this. One is they can identify, first of all, what sorts of details allow for this come alive character. And beyond that, they need to construct some phrases or sentences to describe characters based on these sensory details. So yes, that's the main lesson.
Thank you. So for this lesson, can you help us to understand? So you have, this is a writing lesson, and the portion of the lesson that we will be looking into would be the pre-writing activity?
Correct. This is actually a pre-writing activity. In fact, it's a series of activities before the actual writing. We have a topic statement, which is a disappointing event, which all of you can also see on your screens. So that's the main theme.
Okay. So at this point of time, we'd like to share with the participants the design map of the lesson. And Allan, could you also share with us how are the activities designed to activate students' learning?
We could begin from the highlighted portion, activity 1 and 2. In the first activity, students were asked to read 2 chunks of text. And these 2 chunks of text are written based on a series of events depicted by a storyboard, which is on your screens on the left side. Both of these paragraphs are actually written as climaxes. In this case, the height of the problem sort of paragraph. So they will decide and then verbalize in their own way which of the 2 chunks they prefer and why. That is our main objective of the first activity. In the second activity, having read the chunk, they need to use this thinking routine. It's sort of like a guide for them. So in selecting the chunk 1 or chunk 2, we ask them, what do you see that makes you say that? It's just to scaffold the potential, maybe understanding of the task, because we're worried that if it's one question, they may not be able to, get the answers out. So after they did this, in looking through their answers, we found that about 95% of the students' answers are in relation to them preferring the second chunk, which is chunk 2. Earlier, if you recall, chunk 2 is actually the one that is longer, was on the right side. And most of the reasons given, as you can see from the screen here, is the description is, in my students' words, more clearer. It has 4 senses. The middle response is actually from one of my higher performing students. And the third response is the second chunk is more detailed and more interesting. So this is actually broadly what 95% of my students have given me as answers for this particular thinking team.
So
So this,
95%,
yes,
yeah, so 95% of them actually selected chunk 2.
that's right.
Yeah. What about
And
some of the responses for those who selected chunk 1? What were some of the reasons?
actually for chunk 1, the few who gave us the answers, they actually found it easier to read.
Okay.
They say it's shorter. I can understand chunk 1. But that is only about 2 or 3 of my students. That's the remaining 5%. So generally, our stimulus for chunk 2 has achieved the understanding of why perhaps it is better. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And also, after that, after activity 2, what do you do to scaffold students' learning?
So in activity 3, which is highlighted here, we utilize the same chunk 2. And what we presented to children is actually a highlighted chunk 2. Why we highlighted it is because we feel that we need to have a distinction between the 4 sensory emotions that we are trying to identify, which is the see, hear, feel, and think. The different color highlights and the legend below allow the children to go through with the teacher on the screen what exactly is the teacher's perspective of see, hear, think, and feel. We ask them certain questions after we showed them the chunk. Some such questions include things like, are there any sentences that you particularly like, and why do you say so? Then we will open the floor to bounce the question past each student. So maybe we can have a student build another student answer, or we could just ask another student to answer the same question. Another question that we asked was any comments that they have in which we have classified the sentences under see, hear, feel, and think. Like, what do they think about our classification? Do they have any questions related to the way we did it? Our intent was to try to get the class to identify the subjectivity here of what this emotion sensing is to different people, which actually we did come across that there were several people who challenged why is this sentence a see, not a hear? Or why is this a think, not a feel? So we were able to get the children to understand that there is no really one person who has one correct answer in terms of identifying the emotion, the sensory detail. And from there, it allowed us to build to follow up to the next activity.
So this activity really allowed the students to see examples of the different sensory details. Yeah. And
Yes.
I like it that you got the students to talk about it, to rationalize it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so after that, the next activities in this series of activities, how are they designed to promote students' thinking and discussion?
So in these 3 activities, it involves quite a lot of group work discussion. The basis of it is actually based on 3 videos. So now that the students understand what we have alluded to for see, hear, feel, think, they need a stimulus in order to practice, to identify and to construct the phrases. So what we did was we gave them 3 videos. They are all different sorts of disappointing events. And when they discuss, each member is supposed to adopt one role. So that member is either going to be a see, or a hear, or a feel, or a think. And that member's job is to look through a climax video, which is actually a shorter version of the 3 videos. There's actually a choice that they have to make. So the 3 videos they have to choose. After they choose their favorite, then they have to narrow it down to which climax video shall I watch. So the climax video will then guide the child to say, I will identify the details based on this video. After each individual has identified their own sentences, they have to write it down. In our case, we gave them post-its to use, so they could jot down as many as they can. And then the group has a round robin discussion to narrow down each members best see or hear or feel or think in order to present it to the rest of the class. So in presenting it to the rest of the class, we have selected the platform known as Padlet, as all of you can see on the screen. The reason why we are doing this is because we want the whole class to have been one consolidated view panel, and they can easily scroll through by categories. As you can see, our categories are arranged vertically. So this also allows the teacher to monitor the status of the group work as the group work is going on. And it also means that there can be some cross-referencing between groups as the answers are posted. So these are all the reasons why we selected the Padlet platform to be included in this lesson that we hosted. Generally, for the Padlet responses, which is the product of this lesson, you can see we saw vast improvements in terms of the way they represent characters in terms of senses. For example, in the current screenshot, you can see under perhaps lower down the screen, you can see an entry posted by Lin Chen, my student, under mermaid video. In blue, she says, dog could hear loud gunshot sounds coming from the TV. This is something like describing the environment around the character. Of course, in this case, the character is the dog and not rather a person. So we thought that is something that a child previously in my class doesn't really spend time describing these things. They focus more on what is going on in the story, and then they just develop event by event. Yeah, another example is something that you can see, perhaps I can direct you to. The one just quite long, it's under Think, under Video C Think, the one in white. The boy who was trapped in the garage was very sad, which is something like a feel, can be a think, and disappointed because he could not exit the garage as he was locked by the bully. So this is a very long, actually it's a complex sentence. The child is trying to combine many, not only a sensory, but also an event in one paragraph or one line.
Sure.
So we feel that this is definitely a growth area that we have seen. Of course, there are more, but I won't share all of them.
So some of the shift that you see here are really students paying attention to details about how they could go about describing the characters, and they were really using see, hear, feel, and think to help them to scaffold some of these that they can describe. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Allan.
Sure.
Thank you for sharing with us about your lesson. Yeah.